Howdy ho! On this video I will show how I built this John Malecki inspired kitchen island stool, which was the first bench I have ever built. On the final product I used walnut, but for the prototype, which you will see clips from the first, I was just using a very cheap 2x6 because I needed to test out how it will actually work before building the actual piece. As I mentioned, this is my first bench or stool I ever built, and this is also my first time ever using templates. And I don't have a CNC, so I'm cutting everything by hand, and I really didn't have any measures. I just figured out some crappy design from my own papers and just tried it out. That's why I did the prototype from the cheap 2x6 first. And after cutting the templates with my bandsaw, then I went over to my sander to take out the rough edges and try to make them as square as possible. After I cut the 2x6 pieces roughly into correct length using the templates, then I used my planer to get the rounded edges out. Once I had them milled roughly to the correct shape and size, then I used my templates to draw the actual final shape that I will be then using my router and the template with a flush trim bit. In the original video by John Malecki, he had a different approach. He did the glue up first, and then after the whole shape was glued up, he then went to the router, and I think that's actually a better way. Especially when I do the end product, I had some problems with the shapes I was using, so for the next ones I will be building, I will quite surely use the way that John Malecki did on his video. But I'm still a beginner, so learning more and more with every build I do. For attaching the template to the piece, I'm using blue tape with the glue and activator. That will ensure a very quick way of getting myself to the router. I'm still very much a beginner with the router table, so I'm always a bit scared when I need to use it. So I was trying to use this with push blocks, but I didn't feel like I was in control, so I decided to do this without push blocks. But yeah, still not very comfortable using this, but nothing bad happened. I was able to make the shapes I wanted to make. And my flush trim bit wasn't long enough, so I needed to do this cut with two different bits. First the first section, and then removing the template and doing this second cut with another bit. So still working with the prototype, taking out everybody's favorite tool, the Domino. So I am using Domino to make the glue ups easier for me. I like the tool. One of the reasons why I like the Domino, in addition to it being very easy to use, is the ability then for me to do these dry fittings very easily before going to the glue up. So this is just one of the reasons why I'm actually big fan of the tool, even though I know it is crazy expensive. But anyway, then I was ready for making the glue up, and already here I started to see that the shape was not exactly how I want the end product to be. But I decided to go ahead because this version, this prototype, I will still use as a shop stool for myself. So even though I will modify the templates for the final build, this one will not be thrown away, so I keep using it at my shop even today. I didn't include all the phases with sanding and attaching the bench to the prototype. But as mentioned, I still keep using the prototype as my shop stool even today. After making modifications to my templates, then I started the actual build with walnut. So here I'm doing the same steps, but with slightly different templates and being a bit more precise with all my cuts. So obviously walnut is a much harder wood than the construction grade 2x6 that I was using for the prototype. And while things worked out nicely with the softwood, I did have a few chip outs when using walnut, so then I needed to fix the chip outs that came when I was using my router table. I decided to fix the chip out area by making the area actually bigger, but I made it square so it will be easier for me to attach this new block to it. And after sanding it out and finishing it, it actually almost disappeared completely from the end product, so the fix actually worked quite nicely. And I did have a few of similar issues, so here you see me fixing the rest. And after the glue dried, then I just used my saw to cut the pieces roughly out. So obviously this is an extra step. Hopefully for the next ones I will be building, I won't have this, because I will be using the style how John Malecki actually did it in his video. So I think at this stage I understood why he did the process in a way he did. So hopefully with the next ones I don't need to do these extra fixes. But after sanding these patches up, they almost completely disappeared. So I'm actually very happy with the end result. So then after giving them a quick sanding, it was time to take everybody's favorite tool out again. So bring in the Domino. And yeah, I know it would be better to clamp this, or if I had a vise, which I don't, to use that one. So because as you see, the piece is trying to move out when I'm doing these drillings. But anyway, it worked out quite nicely. So after I did the dry fitting and everything looked nice, then it was time to do the first glue up of this build. And obviously aligning the pieces is easy by using these dominoes, so no surprises there. The glue up, it went nicely. As you see, I'm adding a bit of sawdust here to the glue lines. Not really sure if it's even necessary. The lines were actually pretty good, but then again, doesn't harm. So this is just something I'm used to be doing. So in case there are a bit of gaps here and there, using a bit of sawdust will actually make them disappear quite nicely. While the glue was drying, I went to my miter saw to cut 3 pieces of the walnut, and I will glue them together to make a wider board. That's one of the missing pieces that I will be adding to the stool once the first glue up has dried up. All domino haters rejoice. I am not using dominoes here. Quite frankly, I don't think it's needed. The alignment is fairly easy with this small piece anyway, so I'm only using glue. It will be strong enough and no alignment help needed, so very easy glue up with this one. I've said it on my other videos as well, and I keep saying it, that I am the one and only woodworker who seems to be enjoying sanding. And I always use the same reason, because there's always few problems here and there, and I really like that after sanding, things are really starting to look like this will be a usable piece. So maybe eventually I will get bored to it like everybody else, but as of now, sanding is still one of the phases I actually enjoy, because as mentioned, things really start looking nice. While sanding, I found out this small problem on the walnut itself. There was a bit of a broken or loose area, so I just chose to add in a bit of glue, and I think that actually solved it nicely. So not sure where it came from, but yeah, I found it out during sanding. And just like before, I will add a bit of sawdust to the glue seam, which will make it pretty much disappear once I sand it out. So at this phase of the build, what I have are the 2 side pieces glued up and ready, but I don't have the parts done yet that will actually attach them together. So what I'm doing here, again using Domino, is making the holes and helping with the alignment once I do the final glue up, where I will actually attach all the remaining pieces together and be ready for starting to finish this one. I haven't done too many glue ups in my life, and for the first ones I was really like almost panicking when I was adding glue, because we all know there is a limited time to work once you start working with the glue. But nowadays, even though I haven't done that many, by doing dry fitting first, I know that the pieces will actually fit together, so I'm much more relaxed nowadays with these glue ups. But still, it's always nice when you see them fitting nicely together, the glue up going nicely, and then adding the clamps and basically then waiting for 24 hours, coming back the next day to see how to actually finalize the product or project. Once everything is dried up, then it's time to start doing the final sanding. For the board, I did it oversized on purpose because I think it's actually an easy way then to use the sander to get it flush with the side pieces. So that's what you see me doing here first. And then obviously I sanded out the whole thing properly. I started with 80 grit, then did 120 grit and then 180 grit. I think it's plenty enough for a stool that will be finished with the Rubio monocoat as well, so that's my finishing process. Before doing the final grit, I was thinking, should I do a round over or a chamfer? I decided to go with a chamfer, and I think it's a good choice. There were a few areas where my router couldn't reach, so those I then actually took out with my chisel. So I'm not good with hand tools, but doing small things like this is not a problem. Now the stool is pretty much complete, so the final thing left is finishing it, and I basically only have Rubio monocoat and Natura one coat in my stock, which I think are almost the same quality and the same style to apply. So on this one I decided to use my Rubio because that has been open for a longer time and I think it will eventually go bad. So I will use my Rubio now first and then move over to the Natura one coat, which is probably my finish that I will be using in future because it is cheaper than Rubio. But very easy to apply, just spread it in with a cloth and then wait a few minutes and then wipe everything off and then it's ready. So thanks for watching, and if you like the content, please subscribe, and as mentioned, kudos goes to John Malecki for original design. So I did not invent this design, I just copied and tried to build it myself.